What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Valley coming at you with a solo podcast, but it's going to be a mailbag podcast. Grant and I want to do a hot or not episode when we do our live stream on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern time, so be sure to check that out. Also, before we dive into this mailbag, and I think I'll two up for this week, so I'm going to try and keep this one a little bit short since it's very late and I'm trying to do better with my sleep. Spoiler alert, I'm sucking at it. I'm trying. Remember to rate, review, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast if you haven't done so already. Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, the whole nine, YouTube. Subscribe, like. If this is your first time checking us out, please make us a regular listen or watch on YouTube or Apple, Spotify, whatever. Finally, if you've done those things, though, tell people about us. Retweet us on Twitter, shout us out, pull quote us. Those are always fun to see. Join our Discord as well. The link to that is in the podcast and YouTube description. And follow us on all the socials. TikTok, we're closing in on 300 followers. Help us get there at HardwoodKnocks on TikTok and Twitter, and then Instagram at Hardwood_Knocks. I don't have anything else for us. Let's just get to, we had a lot of fantastic questions here. I'm going to start with one that's kind of fairly topical, but also a little, it's all sorts of, I wanted to address it on the podcast, but I don't. Let's just get here. Jake from State Farm, as I'm stumbling through this. So this may not be too NBA related, but what are the potential ramifications we could see from the league's investigation into Ja's Instagram video? With all of the reports and his strange celebration after Desmond Main's three the other night, is he trying to be this generation's AI? What should Memphis do moving forward, especially with just all the chaos going on with the team? Clark's out for the season. He has that Achilles injury. Brooks already on his 16th tech. Ja, not just now, but in the future. So this is really tough for me to comment on. I hate the idea of me being just this like white dude commenting on the lifestyle or any disciplinary action that's to go towards this black 23-year-old kid, because there's a 23-year-old kid. And I think we forget, myself included, a lot, that these players are so young and they're in the public eye that we almost age them up and expect them to act differently or more responsible, or prop them up to be someone they're not, in the sense that 23 is still 23, regardless of the situation, your income that you're in. With that being said, no, it's absolutely unacceptable. All the reports that came out in the WOPO report, if you didn't read that yet, you should probably check it out. Just about him punching a teenager. He's claiming self-defense, but his I think it was his agent came out and like the rebuke of that was just very half-assed or soft, saying even though he struck first, it was self-defense, or no charges were filed. So we're pointing that out. The whole finish line incident where he apparently came up with like 9 people, or a total of 9 people, after his mom got into an argument with a finish line employee, and then he's talking shit to the security guard. There's also that, and I don't think this was made a big enough deal. It just kind of came out at The Athletic that the NBA tried to investigate whatever laser pointer, whatever thing was pointed at the Pacers after a Grizzlies game, and they couldn't corroborate anything. And that just kind of like, that was the last thing we mentioned about it. And then now this, where he has the Instagram live after a loss, holding a gun up in the video, it appears. And now there's an investigation being done by the Colorado police. Colorado is a open carry state, but some parts are not. It's also, did he have a license for it? And also this is ESPN, I believe, you're not allowed to be carrying a gun. This is the NBA's protocols while on team business. So where does that qualify as? Morant is going to be away from the team for at least a total of 2 games, which is what has been announced so far. I don't know if there's going to be further disciplinary action. I do not know what that disciplinary action should be. I thought Bomani Jones had a great thread on this. It's sad and it's depressing, and I don't want to use Ja Morant's age as sort of this shield to defend him, because it is unacceptable. He's 23. He's now spent, let's say, 20% of his life as super rich and having access to resources that only people could dream of. And he's old enough and in a situation where he should know right from wrong, and that this shit that we're hearing about is clearly wrong and it's troubling, and it's not an okay reaction to stress, or as he put it, I believe in his announcement. At the same time, just some of the things being said are just super awkward here, where you're making sweeping judgments about his character, long-term, scaling ahead as a man, as a person. Like, you can make, like, and I'm not excusing these mistakes, but like, these are not, nothing I have heard is irredeemable, something that he can't atone for. And I would also argue that, there's the reports, I think Mark Stein mentioned it, Tim McMahon mentioned it on the Hoop Collective. There's been shit going on for about at least a year, over a year, that the Grizzlies have been concerned. this is a failure on their part as well. If this shit was happening for over a year and they didn't take more steps to address it behind the scenes, and now it's sort of, oh, it's in the public eye, so we're going to do something about it. There was also the report from Shams that Steven Adams had kind of said that, not kind of said, but in a players only meeting, had said that the Grizzlies need to have more discipline on the road, essentially, and that everyone knew said meeting and comments were aimed at Ja Morant. I like, okay, he's like, first of all, if Steven Adams told me to do anything, I'm like, I'm going to do it at full attention. That would scare the shit out of me. So I am concerned here. I don't know if Ja is doing this on purpose. I don't know if this is the result, if he's trying to be some sort of renegade, as Jake from Safe Farmers, is he trying to be this generation's AI? I didn't really look at it like that. I also don't know if this warrants think pieces in the form of, like, does he need to follow the route of Carmelo Anthony when he kind of got that stern warning from, I can't remember who it was. Mark J. Spears just wrote about this for Enscape, so go check that out. I'm really just I refuse to write off Ja because of this. Like, everyone knows how I feel about the Grizzlies who listens to this podcast. I don't think that they're contenders. I think the team really messed up when you're looking at a talent perspective of not filling holes that they needed. But the team also seems like they messed up here too, as to why was this not taken more seriously behind the scenes, at least it seems, until now, until it gets to this point. And I'm concerned, like for Ja, like, this is just a 23-year-old who, yes, like, he's been given this intense amount of privilege, and you can't excuse this, but I want everyone to just be okay. Like, that would be the ultimate goal here. And so where this comes from a human interest perspective, it's absolutely unacceptable. It's indefensible at this point, and I would not excuse it. But I also just, like, some of the things that are being said are just wildly uncomfortable. And like I said, even spending 5 minutes, 7 minutes on this for the podcast, I hate being like the white dude that's going to be on a soapbox. And so I think that's all I'll say about the human aspect of this, is that I hope Ja is okay, and I hope that his behavior does slip around, but I don't think it's also just like, oh, he's super young and we need to, there needs to be a level of empathy here. But this goes beyond just being super young. I don't care that frankly, I don't care that he was at a strip club while he was on the road. Like, that's going to be the NBA lifestyle at points. And he's 23 and with money. I don't know what you expect. But as Romani pointed out, we can say all we want about the people he's surrounding himself with. There's comments made about his father and how he needs to step in and do a better job. Like, I'm not going to infer anything about his dad or his friends based off everything that I've read and heard and now seen. Is just like, it's been Ja Morant that's doing this stuff. And so it falls on him, and he's an adult, and it should fall on him. But I think we need to stop pretending, anyone who is or anyone who's saying that this is irredeemable or hinting at it, or if there's just some, there's racist undertones to what they're saying. Like, this is, that is gross. Like, that's absolutely gross. This isn't something Ja can't come back from. And hopefully that he will return and it'll be smooth sailing from the Grizzlies from there on out. And also, like, it matters more than for just the Grizzlies. It matters that this is a 23-year-old kid who I hope he's just going to make smarter, better, safer decisions moving forward. And that's the first and foremost concern, is you don't want to see this lead to anything worse. And then basketball is kind of secondary for me from there. And it's also that's kind of wrapping up the Ja stuff. But to see, there was the tweet from Shams where he had the report about the Grizzlies players only meeting. And then you have Bet Online responding to that tweet saying, we have odds on Ja Morant's return. And it's just like, I understand the world today, and I don't have a problem with people who bet on sports. I personally do not. I used to when I was younger, before it was legal throughout the United States, but like, it doesn't necessarily do anything for me. To each their own. But like, we don't have to fucking have odds on everything. And so there's just like a level of grotesqueness to having odds on whether Ja Morant is going to return, because again, there's a major human element to this. We're talking about someone's like livelihood is at stake, or life is just in play here. And then there's also the livelihood of those around him, just because if he actually does have a gun, or if they're like the whole red laser thing, that's just not behavior that is going to, if it keeps up long term, I would imagine lead to anything productive and could lead to something tragic. But again, I'm not going to infer all these things about Ja as a person and a human and his future just because at the age of 23 he's really fucking up. And we've all made major fuck ups when we're around that age. I know I did. It just didn't happen in public eye. And again, there's a different scale to this. I want to make that clear. I also wasn't going around pointing lasers at people. We don't know if that was Ja. I also definitely wasn't going around with a gun. I'm just saying, let's not write off Ja Morant long term, and let's be careful about what we say. I'm even as I'm saying this right now, as I thought about this a ton, I almost want to go back and listen and edit out stuff that maybe I stumbled through so I didn't say anything wrong. And we probably need to approach it with a level of caution that even supersedes that. So hopefully that answers your question there from Jake State Farm. And where it comes to the Grizzlies, Brandon Clark's super important to them, especially if you're going to have Jaren Jackson Jr. not playing even 30 minutes per game, which I think is probably going to harsh his defensive player of the year case. And then there's going to be certain matchups in the playoffs specifically where you can't fly with Steven Adams, I would imagine. We did see it a little bit last year. So that's definitely, and it sucks for him. Achilles are tough to come back from. And I'm glad he signed an extension too, because a lot of what he does is prided on bounce. Dylan Brooks, I would imagine that he'll probably watch himself after this suspension to where you're not going to, another 2 techs and then get suspended again. I imagine he's not going to want to put himself in that position. But I just look at the Grizzlies as a team with or without Ja that doesn't have the championship oomph that their record suggests. And even as we record this, they are in danger of falling out of the number 2 spot. And I don't know if anything that happens with Ja, aside from him being out for an extended period of time, if he comes back, I don't know if that has any sort of impact, whatever, on the locker room. I would imagine, not that the intangibles are overrated, but we do tend to, I think, overrate maybe how much, just because of what the public perception of Ja might be at the time and how frustrated his teammates might be. This is not going to be a situation where they're going to shun him or just completely ruins the team chemistry, would be my guess once he returns. Although I tend to say, well, players are warmer and like each other more than we try to make this out to be with rivalries. And then we have Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving just not acknowledging each other during the Suns Mavericks game on Sunday. We'll say it was a slight comfort to me for maybe Kevin Durant to show the slightest disdain for Kyrie Irving, because it was just, what kind of fucking blind loyalty did he have to that guy that he put up with it, whatever shit was happening in Brooklyn for so long. But not even semi-related to the topic. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at on the Grizzlies. Brian C. asks, if you were the Thunder GM, so just assume he's talking about Sam Presti here, and you got a top 2 pick, so a top 2 pick, Scoot or Wemby would be the selection, would you go all in immediately? By this, they don't mean trade the pick, but they mean target someone else. And who would it be based on the assets that OKC has and the roster they have? And he also, Brian asked, do they have enough to get 2 OG Mikal Bridges level players? So to answer the second part of this question first, I would think that they could get 2 of them. If they wanted to, I think they could go out and say, hey, we're not trading Shea, we're not trading Chet, and we're not trading this year's first round pick. Everyone else is on the table, though. Josh Giddey, J-Dub, and you could go out and get both OG and Mikal. Just as I wouldn't do that. You have Lou Dort, but you could get 2 of those type of players. And how would it change for me? One, would I go all in? I probably wouldn't go all in, but I would definitely go more in than I know the Thunder would go. If let's just say they have Wemby or Scoot and then Chet Holmgren's coming back, they're going to want to see what they have with the roster before they make any major moves. And they're a franchise that thinks very deliberately, methodically, takes their time. And so there would be a graduality to what they do. And that they have Shea under lock and key long-term. And unless he becomes disenchanted with their direction, which maybe if they're losing again next season, that's something that would be a risk. But I think you would have to look at the roster and say, okay, look at the improvement we made this year. And we're going to get Chet and a top 2 pick next season. That being said, if you do get Scoot, that does open up being able to trade Josh Giddey a little bit more, who showed a bunch of offensive improvement this year. And I don't know what player I would target. I will tell you exact name. I will tell you right now that player needs to shoot. The offense in OKC has gotten a lot better, and they've been hitting their threes overall the past couple months. But you look at the roster, and there's just no one aside from Isaiah Joe who's this caps lock shooter. And so I would like to see them get someone preferably a bigger on the wings who's going to have this functional touch. And Mikal Bridges would probably be perfect for them. But I also think that if you're going to go all in, it does suggest going after a star. And so if it's Scoot, you want that star to come. You have Scoot and you have SGA, and let's leave it there. You have Chet, but if you're getting Scoot or Wemby and then you have SGA, I think you look at it as, okay, Chet and Wemby or Scoot and then SGA are just your primary building blocks. You don't make Josh Giddey untouchable in that scenario. You don't make J-Dub untouchable. You don't make even Lou Dort untouchable. Those are players that you would preferably keep around. But I think immediately, even I would say it now, like Chet, and I guess you throw Josh Giddey in here just looking at the makeup of their roster. But I really look at Chet and SGA as just like, okay, this is the bold text nucleus of this Oklahoma City roster. Are they actively looking to move guys like Ousmane Dieng, who I still remain very high on, or Kendrick Williams, who's going to have a statue outside in OKC one day, I would imagine? No, absolutely not. But like, is a Lou Dort untouchable if you're actively deciding to go in on a star trade? No. It's just the question of, okay, would they decide to go in on that type of a deal? And so you could look at it like even if you have Scoot or Wemby, do you consider looking at a Joel Embiid? If James Harden leaves and he becomes disenchanted in Philly, that's someone who could absolutely fit with whether it's Scoot or it's Wemby. I guess if you have Wemby, Chet, and Embiid, like, could get a little awkward, but Wemby's basically a wing. And we know that Chet, just based off his play style archetype, can play alongside another big. I would even say Pascal Siakam, whether it's Wemby or Scoot as well. Definitely if it's Scoot, but if it's Wemby, you could go with him too. I wouldn't mind, if we're going to throw, like, Mikal Bridges or OG Anunoby are probably the lowest. They're not the lowest tier of players, but like, if we're talking about going all in on someone, that's who I'm really thinking of. Like, that's the lowest tier of an all in play I would make. And that might be a little bit of an insult to Mikal Bridges, but certainly OG Anunoby. It's not, oh, let's go all in a Gary Trent Jr. sign and trade. And you also don't need to do that because you have cap space this year. Gary Trent Jr. might actually be a pretty good fit for the roster, though. I wouldn't be a Bradley Beal guy for this team. Siakam and Embiid are the two names I'm keeping an eye on. If it's Scoot, no for Zach LaVine. If it's Wemby, would I consider Zach LaVine? Depending on the cost, just because he's a little bit younger than Bradley Beal, I ultimately would say no. Someone who is older, if they became available, though, and you don't have Scoot. This is a Wemby thing. Damian Lillard would just be super interesting. OKC with SGA, Dame, Chet Holmgren, and Wemby. That's a core. This is so wild too because OKC just not. I'm spending all this time. OKC just not going to get a top 2 pick because they're going to, in the end, should be too good statistically. Brandon Ingram make a lot of sense if New Orleans decides to shake things up or he becomes disenchanted there. I don't know what you would need to do to move Brandon Ingram in New Orleans. I wouldn't just do it for future equity. They have future equity. They're another team that needs to make an all-in trade. But I'm just sort of spitballing there. And look, these are all names that whether OKC, like, they're getting Chet back and they're going to have maybe another lottery pick or at least one other first-round pick and another, Ousmane Dieng and J-Dub will have more experience under their belt. Like, they're a team that could justify, especially with the cap space they have and all the future draft equity. Yeah, there's not a ton of incoming players this year, but you're going to have to start thinking long-term. We can't house all of these guys. So even if you don't get a top 2 pick, like, I'm the Thunder, like, I'm opportunistic here. And I'm thinking, all right, if it's not, it's different if you get the number 1 or 2 pick, maybe you're more inclined to go all in, or does that make you more patient? I could see a case for both. That if I were the Thunder, though, I've already been on record, like, I am buying, like, I'm using my cap space this summer. So, what if Paul George or Kawhi Leonard becomes available? I don't know that they would reunite with Paul George, even though that seemed to end on fairly rosy terms of what they got for him. But I think Kawhi would probably dictate where you would want to go. And you don't really want to open yourself up to the injury history. There's a difference between accelerating your timeline and then maybe making it a little too flimsy. They do need someone though, like that 3-4, whether it's even if you get Wemby, that feels like it would be the ideal. And even Wemby's more ideal because it feels like he gives you more positional flexibility in your trade targets than Scoot. But yeah, like, those are all the names that I mentioned there. If this is just like, you would have to make the all-in trade and be like, hey, he's going to hit free agency, or you're sure he's going to resign to his incumbent team right now, and be like, hey, like, could you get Jaylen Brown? And my guess would be no. But like, those are the names. I think realistically, or a path that I could see, I like Pascal Siakam, Brandon Ingram, and then Joel Embiid, just like if the James Harden stuff blows up, because that Houston noise is just so damn loud right now. And they can even just like, straddle the line and go with John Collins just because he won't cost anything to really get. Anthony Davis would be kind of fun too if the Lakers decide to blow it up, but I don't think that happens either. So there are a lot of different routes they could go. But if I identify one player, let's try and balance being realistic with it that will be available, because we all know this is moot because the Thunder won't make the all-in trade. That I think would make a ton of sense for the Thunder. I really want to be like spicy here and say Joel Embiid, but it would just be Siakam. Like, monitor him, and if you have him and Chet and then Wemby or Scoot with SGA and like whatever else is left, like, that's a pretty fucking awesome core. Fun question. I'm just hoping the Thunder use their cap space and try and go be like, hey, let's drum up the market on Grant Williams' offer sheet, or even PJ Washington's. Like, let's like see if you could poach one of those guys. But yeah, this one we had a lot of Raptors questions, which is always fun. The Raptors are a fascinating team. This one comes from Demos Quoll. What kind of contract is FVV hoping to get in free agency, after being so bad with his shot this year? Yeah, I will say, that's like a less than ideal contract year for Fred VanVleet right now. We've seen the areas in which he's looked like more of a live wire off the dribble since the Jakob Poeltl trade, where it's like having someone who's actually screening and rolling, that goes a long way for what he's able to do. And I think it's made him more dangerous as a passer, but the shooting is really yet to come around for him. Overall, he's still in the 70, and this is what is so troubling. And it's to Demos's point, 74th percentile of pick and roll scoring efficiency. And he's turning the ball over on a smaller share of those possessions, around 10% than he did last year, which was 14%. And like I said, he looks like more of that live wire playmaker since the arrival of Poeltl off the dribble. But the outside shooting, though, my God, he'll have stretches or games of really high efficiency, and then there's like a 2 of 7 or worse clip from deep. VanVleet shot 37.9% from 3 last year, and he was a 38.2% career shooter entering this year. He's now comfortably under 34% for this season. And what's also awkward is that the drop-off is coming where he's statistically been most successful, and that's on catch-and-shoot threes. He's hitting under 35% of his spot-up triples, which is down from 43.3% last year and 38.1% in 2021. Could last year have been the outlier relative to what we know? Perhaps. But you could also say, well, maybe this isn't really a concern at all. If he's shooting this poorly for this long in a contract year, it'll eventually come back, right? Because that's his strength. Or is this devolution maybe a little bit more permanent? He's not like super young, and you kind of want to believe this isn't the new normal, but then what if it is? I tend to just lean towards this is not the new normal. He's actually been a little bit higher on his catch and shoot threes over his past 15 or 16 games, over 35%. Not a great number, but a better number. I don't think the Raptors offense is always conducive to getting him the most quality looks either. But, there are long-term implications here. And just like if we're talking about, a team that wants to go all in on someone this summer, it helps that Fred VanVleet is going to be a top 5 free agent no matter what. He's 29, and so next year will be his age 29 season, but he will turn 30 in February. At the same time, could rebuilding teams still look at him and say, oh, this is someone that we're willing to give near max money to? Which, by the way, his max, which is the 7 to 9 year max, is in the 40s. I don't think he's getting 40.2 million. I don't think he's getting that from anybody. But I think he gets, and if he declines his player option, it's because he believes that he's going to get comparable to the 22.8 million that he's on the books for next year, or at least a crap ton of more money over the longer term. I know a lot of people think that Kyle Lowry's past deal was like 3 and 90 or 3 and 100 might have been his target. I think that we'll see him get, if I had to take the over-under on 30 million per year on an average annual value, I think I'm going to take the under, even with the salary cap going up, unless he just goes on a heater for the rest of this season. That's just a lot of money to invest in Fred VanVleet, even if it's 30 million against a $134 million salary cap. 22% of the salary cap on Fred VanVleet. Maybe I might need to restructure this. Over under 30 million. Let's go over under 31 million. I'll take the under, just to leave open the idea that maybe someone gives him 30. And if he does get 30, I don't think it's going to be a 4-year deal. And maybe players will want to sign shorter contracts anyway to get back into free agency once the new cap or TV money is infused into the salary cap. But yeah, I don't know what type of deal he's going to get. I will say that he's not getting, I'll be shocked if it's under 25 million. And something like 4 of 100 or maybe 3 for like 88 or something feels like it would be in his wheelhouse based off the season he had. But that just might be undervaluing his defense. And so there are teams that I think could come in, the Raptors being one of them, because losing him for nothing would be a catastrophe after not trading him at the deadline. But if you're a team like looking at the squads that have cap space, I don't think that you have Jaden Ivey and Cade Cunningham and Killian Hayes and maybe Scoot at that point in Detroit. So they'll have money, but you would have to move a lot of other pieces around Houston could use an adult in the room on offense, but I don't wish them on Fred VanVleet, and they might be in the James Harden sweepstakes. That's a team, though, that I could see like, hey, here's 30 to 35 million a year to come play for us. The Pacers will have money, and he would actually be really fascinating with Tyrese Halliburton, but they have Benedict Mathurin already, and the Pacers need to get to too much room. They're sub 30. OKC could have over $30 million in cap space. So could Orlando. Orlando's definitely more likely to use it. The Spurs could get to 35 plus million. Utah should have about 50 plus million. That's assuming they waive Olynyk, which I don't think that would be a given, but they'll have more than max room. I can't see either of them going after him. And so just like, it feels almost as if it'll be Houston and Orlando that would take a look at him. I guess Charlotte could have money, but LaMelo Ball is going to be there, and you have Terry Rozier, so that doesn't make much sense. And then signing trades are, of course, always on the table. If I had to guess, we should use, instead of using the just 30 million, Kyle Lowry's contract that he signed with the Heat. If I'm not mistaken, what was that, 3 years? And it was 85 million. That's actually, I didn't realize it had, I don't know why I thought it was more. But I think it's going to be more than the Kyle Lowry deal on an average annual value. That was about 28, 29.7 in the last year. I'm going to say, that was his previous deal that I'm thinking of, that was the 3 and the 99 or whatever. I could see, I'm not going to lie, I could see him getting that. If I had to take the over-under on 33, I would definitely take the under. 31's a little bit tougher just because it could be a short-term windfall there. But yeah, the season's not ideal. I ultimately don't think it cost him too much money. If he was hoping to get a max contract, even in the short term, like a 3-year, $120 million deal or something, I think that is absolutely out of the question at this point for him. Let's move on to this next question, which I believe is also about the Raptors. No, it's not. This one comes from Glad. What's a bigger detriment to a team in the playoffs? A defensive ace with no offensive game, or a pure bucket that is an absolute liability on defense? Look, so much of my being wants to say it's the human bucket who can't get a stop on defense, I believe, as you phrased it. Let's go back to there. A pure bucket that's an absolute liability on defense. But like, we've seen Jordan Poole play some pretty high leverage minutes in the NBA finals. And I think just, it doesn't always have to be this stark of a discrepancy, but just look how much of a non-entity guys like Tony Allen were in the past, or even Andre Robertson, more recently Matisse Thybulle in Philly. And so if you can't shoot in the playoffs, it feels like you're going to be less likely to play than, even if you play top tier defense, than someone who is able to just get buckets. And it's just, you like Jordan Poole, that from scratch creation is a big deal. And so now it becomes a little bit different if you're just someone who shoots and you don't have any sort of on-ball juice, no playmaking chops. Then I could see it being okay. Like, well, we would rather have the defensive specialist then. And look, a lot of it just probably depends on the makeup of your team. If you're just so skewed toward offense and you're going to play, 3 to 4 players who are defensive liabilities, you're just maybe not going to care as much about shooting if they can all space the floor, create for themselves. And so just like, look at it this way, and this is just a bad example, but if the Nuggets, let's change their roster up a little bit. If the Nuggets had Jokic, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr., and then like Aaron Gordon's good on defense, I'm trying to think of like what would be like a good, and then Bones Highland still. No, that's too mean. But like if you had those 3, someone else who's just good on off, like, and wasn't good on defense. That's why I'm not using Gordon, KCP, or Bruce Brown. Are you going to care more about putting Matisse Thybulle in if you had him on the roster? Are you going to care about someone who could shoot more? Yeah, it's important to space the floor around Jokic, but if you already have 3 other shooters around Jokic on the court, and then 4, including Jokic himself, it's definitely going to depend on the makeup of the team, I believe. But I think that in the end, offense is more important. Specifically, shot creation is more important. So that's why we would see guys in higher demand, like if it was a prime Lou Williams, than we would someone who was like an Andre Robertson or a Tony Allen at a point where, yeah, it was cool that he could defend Kevin Durant, but it got to a point where if he didn't even have his athleticism and wasn't moving well off the ball, and defenses just completely ignored him, that makes it easier to cover everybody else. And you essentially are playing 4-on-5 then offensively, and that's really tough no matter how good your offense is, if teams are able to pack the paint or just readily double your best player. So yeah, I think it's, everyone can let me know if they disagree, but I think if it's between having having a defensive ace with no offensive game or pure bucket that's an absolute liability on defense, I'm going with the pure bucket who's an absolute liability on defense. Again, that's in the playoffs, and I guess in the regular season too. I think you just get away with it a little bit more in the regular season, but when teams have time to game plan, I think that it's more important to have the pure bucket. And this is assuming again that this is just not like Steve Novak, who all he can do is hit just like 3-pointers, can't put the ball on the floor. How's that for a throwback? This next question comes from at hopeful 01 TTF. Has Pascal Siakam improved as a playmaker this season? My answer here would be, and I think, look, the stats are going to agree with me. The answer is yes. You look at his assists per 36 minutes; those are up. His turnovers per 36 minutes; those are down. That really does show progress as a playmaker. He's assisting on a higher percentage of his drives than he was last year, while also committing turnovers on a fewer percentage of those plays. And I think when you dig into the film, which is, I did do that for this. I also happened to watch most of the Raptors Nuggets game tonight before recording this. When you look at his passes, there's the Raptors offense feels too sloggy at points where like they have guys who can create, but they're in like these very trying, overly scripted, stick in the mud types of, speeds where, yeah, they can get up and down in transition, but in the half court, it's just so boggy. So that can be tough to watch. But Pascal Siakam, there's definitely more speed to his handle and changing directions than there ever has been. You're looking at some of the passes he throws. He's like turning his body on more of them, throwing less obvious passes. It's not just the shuttle passes to an open shooter or just an entry assist. Doing just more stuff on the move when it comes to his assists overall. And the decision-making feels quicker, where he can pick up his dribble and like that, he might have gotten rid of the ball, or maybe he just determined that he was going to get to the basket by that point. And so there's less sort of having to stop and think. And maybe some disagree just based off how much Toronto's offense has struggled in the half court. But I think you watch him, and this is someone who we haven't done our All-NBA teams yet. And I've been being asked about them pretty frequently. When you look at the forwards, they're going to be really fascinating. And I think the only forwards who are guaranteed to make it over him, and because I don't know, when I do All-NBA versus MVP, because of the value word in MVP, I am going to weight minutes played, games missed. When it comes to All-NBA, I'm still going to weight that, where, Zion, for me, going to play in fewer than 40 games at this point, it looks like. It's hard to really put him in there. But All-NBA, I think you can get away with playing fewer minutes because I'm just looking at flat out who was the best when they were on the court. And did they at least play enough to where it's, okay, you scale forward to, if they only played in, I don't know, like 50, it's arbitrary, like 55 or something. And so I would have Kevin Durant, Jason Tatum, and Giannis as locks over him. And then the discussion just gets super crowded after that. You have LeBron. Does he probably make it? Pascal Siakam, Julius Randle is certainly going to be mentioned there. Larry Markkinen, Kawhi Leonard has been a beast for like a really long time at this point. So what type of consideration is he going to get? And he's been, this is, yes, we made the Clippers, you make the load management jokes, but he's been more available now for quite some time. And so it's just he's not going to fade out of that discussion. Did I miss anyone? Jaylen Brown, I think, will qualify as a guard, so that's not a problem. Anthony Davis will be probably eligible at center, but they do weird shit with the positions where Embiid and Jokic have been eligible at forward too. And so that could also, maybe not so much this year with making centers eligible for forwards, because I think you could pretty easily go with, well, not even then, because it's just like you have Jokic, you have Embiid, you have Anthony Davis, and you have Sabonis, you have Bam Adebayo. Like if you're going to have the ability to get 4 of those guys on, people might take it, like relative. I'm not saying that's right, but like you have to factor kind of those names into there depending on where they're eligible at. That's what makes All-NBA so tough. So I think Pascal Siakam is going to be on one of my All-NBA teams, and I feel like that's going to eventually wind up angering it. It's going to come at the expense of like probably Julius Randle, or is it a Kawhi at that point? Let's see who's eligible. That's going to be tough. But yeah, I think Pascal Siakam has gotten made huge strides this year as a playmaker. And I think over like the Raptors had been a dim spot, but he's been like a bright light basically the entire year. We have another Raptors question from Paul. What do we make of the Raptors? And look, Paul, I wish I had a better answer for you other than I don't fucking know, but I don't fucking know. I don't know what to make of this team. They on paper it looks like they should be better, and yet they are just still a little too top heavy even after the Jakob Poeltl trade. At the same time, they make a lot more sense after the Jakob Poeltl trade as someone who can set screens, having someone who can set screens and roll the rim, someone who's going to give them a backline rim protector. And they played the Nuggets before collapsing. They played like the Nuggets well for like 46 minutes of 48. There's no moral victories there, but they're now 6-4 since the trade deadline. And that's at least, somewhat encouraging. You look at that time though, they're still having some issues on the offensive end. They are 20th in points scored per possession during the stretch, but they're 12th in defense. And I think a lot of it back to them, like this is just, I don't know how to say it. Like, it's just no surprise. It remains their half court attack. They are 20th or 24th, excuse me, in efficiency in the, oh wait, I'm sorry. That was actually, I'm looking at I had the wrong thing pulled up for them. But since the trade deadline, they are 25th in half court efficiency. And so I think that's right about where they've been all season. And like, I'm still looking at the wrong thing for the Raptors. Apologies here. They're 26th in half court efficiency. That's not great, Bob. And you still look at this team, and yes, the lineups they run, they can absolutely positively space the floor because they play faux 4-out or 5-out lineups, depending on who's the big. If it's Jakob Poeltl, it's clearly not the big, but it's not like a real authentic 5-out. Like, this is still a team that ranks in the bottom 4 of 3-point percentage on the year. They're also in the bottom 3, excuse me, in mid-range. And so just the perimeter game is not there. And I think you look at this team and you have to wonder, did they make a mistake not selling at the trade deadline, capitalizing on guys in Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr., who are going to be free agents this summer, both have player options? Or should you have looked deeply at moving OG Anunoby, who's probably not going to sign an extension just because of the extension rules and the money that he could get by hitting the open market in 2024? Do you want to pay Siakam a crap ton of money in his extension, assuming he signs one, when he's 7 years older than Scotty Barnes? And that makes it really difficult to pinpoint their future. The fact they gave up a first-round pick shows me they're pretty invested in making this work, and so I'd expect them to bring back close to everybody. Maybe they explore some sign and trade scenarios. That being said, a lot of people have panned the 2024 draft class, and so giving up a top 6 protected pick might not really matter to them. I still think a top 6 protected pick is a top 6 protected pick. And so I think when you look at this roster, they're talented enough. And especially I was excited to see, we saw more Achua, Jakob Poeltl minutes in Toronto, Denver. So I'm wondering if that becomes a staple. I think that's something that could work well for them. Just as a random aside, I think when you look at them on paper, they get a little hot offensively, and we've seen it from OG Anunoby and Scotty Barnes and Fred VanVleet certainly before. They could be a team that's like, oh, you don't want to face them, especially if they're the 10 seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs. But this is not the year that I expect them to be that irritant. And this is after me saying in the preseason that I absolutely expect them to be that irritant. I thought they were going to be great. I think their win total was like in the high 40s, and I smashed the over. So I was clearly wrong on that one. But this doesn't feel like the year. And so you go into this offseason, you've now hamstrung some of the picks that you can trade, but you need to get functional shooting, I guess I would call it. It would be nice if you preferred if the guy could dribble. So like someone like a Kevin Huerter, who should not be, he's been playing well for the Kings, but like a Kevin Huerter type player feels like he would make all the difference in the world for them. Maybe they might even need someone higher end than that who could dribble even more. I mean, Mikal Bridges would be absolutely perfect for them. Even though he's not like the highest volume 3-point shooters, he's just so good as a cutter and a floor spacer, getting out in transition. And now, we kind of seen his budding off the dribble game for a couple seasons, but it's really just, it's really coming along at this point. So like that would be a name. If you could go even more nuclear where it's like, well, is this a team that should be in on, they should have been on Donovan Mitchell, in my not so humble opinion at this point. Is this a team that's just like, oh, if Zach LaVine becomes available, do you kick the tires on that? If Damian Lillard became available, certainly him. Could this be a team like if the Clippers decide to blow it up, Paul George or Kawhi Leonard? Let's bring back Kawhi. He's familiar with Toronto, but like it could be that level of player. Do you look at even this is Brandon Ingram is just like too like in between heavy for me. Overall, I trust Kawhi Leonard as an outside shooter more than Brandon Ingram, whether that's fair or not at this point. But you need to be in the market for just like, if it's not going to be that type of a star, I would say like a Kevin Huerter type will go a long way here, a Malik Beasley type. But you also already have Gary Trent Jr. It's like that's sort of what makes it weird is you're just so deep at the top. You could still fit in any one of those guys, but are they going to make a material difference compared to Gary Trent Jr. if you're also acquiring that player while he's leaving? And so it also makes keeping Gary Trent Jr. fairly, in my not so humble opinion, again, fairly important. And look, let's do one more question here since I already went longer than I actually wanted to. And it's on the Raptors. Joshua asked, what should Gary Trent Jr.'s new contract look like? He has an $18.6 million player option that he is expected to decline. So it is sort of a fascinating question as to what would he get on the open market. Will he want to stay in Toronto? He's represented by Clutch Sports. If he wants to get his money and end up on a really good team, sign and trades would happen, or maybe he would just stay in Toronto thinking that's a really good team. He's at over 18 points per game this season, 37% from three, still over 24, still only 24, excuse me. He does get tunnel vision a little bit on drives, but he also kind of has like a pull-up game where he could take you just baseline and fade away and knock shots down off the dribble. And I think the age factor is a big thing here because I don't know why Gary Trent Jr. feels like he's been in the league forever, but he's still only 24. That's super young. And so some comparisons to consider money-wise, looking at the shooting guard ranks, and he's sort of a pure shooting guard. You could steal time with him at the three in certain matchups, and he's aggressive enough away from the ball where maybe that works. But he's more of, you kind of look, I feel like those pure twos. And he's on pace to, if he keeps this salary, which is $18.6 million, he would be the 17th highest paid salary as of now with that player option. Do you think he's better than the 17th best shooting guard in the league? Probably, when you look at the names that would be making more than him. Joe Harris and Buddy Hield, they're both making a little between $19 and $20 million next season. And that kind of feels like the bare minimum. What I've been sort of wondering more is just like, is RJ Barrett's extension sort of a good approximation for what Gary Trent Jr. could get? Look, this is a serious question. I know RJ is supposed to have the higher ceiling. We've seen him take on traditionally tougher defensive assignments overall. Not so much this year. Gary Trent Jr. has been better than RJ Barrett this year. Gary Trent Jr. is the better basketball player right now. You might think RJ Barrett has the higher on-ball ceiling as a, I guess, rim attacker and facilitator, but like we have not seen that consistently enough this year. And so RJ signed a 4-year, $120 million deal. $107 million is guaranteed. And so like that is Gary Trent Jr. going to get 4 and 100? We're talking about like 25 plus million a year. You know, RJ Barrett's at 26.8 guaranteed million a year. If I had to guess, I'm going to take, man, maybe I'm being too conservative. I'll take the under if we're going to RJ Barrett money, that he'll get less than 4,107. But I'm also kind of like not so sure. I would feel comfortable paying him between 20 and 22 million because I do think he's better than a Joe Harris or a Buddy Hield. Both of who I think Buddy Hield, the better shooter, just the different ways that you can use him. But I would trust Gary Trent Jr. a little bit more off the dribble. He's going to give you a little more rim pressure in the lane as well, more on-ball jet fuel there. But like I can't trust that he's only 24, and so it wouldn't shock me if just like a team came over the top here. Maybe it's even a contender who's just willing to pay him, but there's going to be some sort of sign and trade with Toronto because they don't want to be the team that pays him. So I'm going to say he gets more than $20 million a year, and I will be. I don't know if I'll think the contract is a steal, but if he's not making more than Joe Harris and Buddy Hield next year, I'll be surprised. And like the thing to remember about this is 15% of the projected salary cap next year is over $20 million. And so like there are teams that will allocate 15% of the salary cap to me, to Gary Trent Jr. And so I will take the over of $20 million. What's fair to me, I think I'd be willing to go like 22, 23 in just a new cap climate. He less than 20% of the cap, which is basically what, RJ Barrett is going to be taking up, I believe. Yeah, he's at almost exactly 20% of the cap. So less than 20% of the cap, but more than 15% of the cap. How is that for an answer, Joshua? Hope everyone enjoyed this. I'll be back with the second half of this. We still have a bunch of other great questions to get to, but I'll be back with the second half of this mailbag on, you'll listen to it on Wednesday. You're listening to this on Tuesday. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, the whole nine. Join our Discord. Shout us out on Twitter. Tell people about us. Quote us on Twitter. Retweet us. If you do shout us out and tag me or at HardwoodKnocks, I will remember to retweet you. Subscribe on YouTube. All the socials at HardwoodKnocks on TikTok and Twitter, and at Hardwood_Knocks on Instagram. Until next time, and as always, I leave you with the shout out to the one, the only, Frank Ntilikina, and I will, in Grant's stead, start remembering to offer the apology to Jared.